Do you sometimes feel like life keeps playing you the same movie on repeat, just with different actors? A different job and the same stress, a different relationship and the same tension, a different city and similar disappointments, and at some point, a question appears that can hurt, but also can set you free. Is it really the world is against me? Or maybe I'm still replaying in the world what I carry inside. The second law of Hermeticism, the law of correspondence, says, as above, so below, as within, so without. This is not about moralizing or convincing you that it's your own fault. It's about something much more practical, a map that lets you see why your reality arranges itself into specific patterns and what to do so those patterns finally change. In this film, you will get three particular things. First, you will understand what above and below mean in the Hermetic sense. Second, you will learn to read your lifelike code, like a message from consciousness. Third, I will show you how to apply this law in everyday life, in relationships, work, emotions, and even in how you make decisions. If you stay until the end, you'll see that the law of correspondence is not a theory, but a tool, and that it works regardless of whether you believe in it. Many people hear this phrase and immediately think, aha, so everything is a metaphor, or so everything is energy. Hermeticism is more precise. The law of correspondence states that between different levels of reality, there exists a relationship of similarity, pattern, and reflection. Above is the level of cause, idea, consciousness, and archetype, something that is not always visible, but that organizes what is visible. Below is the level of effect, form, events, matter, and everyday life. Now, the most important thing. This is not a simple equation like, if I think positively, I'll feel good. Hermetic correspondence means that the outer world is a structure that reflects hidden laws and processes, precisely as in nature, where a small branch resembles the whole tree. A drop of water reflects the principles of the ocean. Correspondence is not identity, but analogy. The pattern repeats across different scales, densities, and forms. That's why Hermeticists could study the cosmos by observing nature, and study nature by observing the human being. This law is like a bridge. It connects micro and macro, psyche and world, symbol and experience. When you understand it, you start to see that your life is not a set of accidents, but a set of signals. And if you can read the signals, you begin to act more wisely, because you no longer fight only the effect, but reach the cause. Notice that almost everything in the world operates according to repeatable structures: day and night, seasons, waves and currents, cycles of growth and rest. These are not only phenomena, they are a language. The law of correspondence suggests that reality speaks to us through patterns, and we usually don't hear it because we look at events in isolation. Yet a human being is also a system. They have energy, emotional, and motivational cycles. Relationships are also systems. They have dynamics, tensions, and recurring roles. Work is also a system. Rules, hierarchies, reactions. And now, if on the level of below you see chaos, it often means that on the level of above, an unconscious pattern is operating. For example, someone keeps changing jobs because everywhere is bad. But in every job, the same conflict repeats, with authority, with evaluation, with the fear of not enough. In the Hermetic sense, below is not punishment. It is information. It is a screen on which the program is displayed. And only when you stop fighting the screen and start asking, what program is displaying this, do you truly begin to grow up spiritually and psychologically. Correspondence in nature teaches you one more thing. A small change on the level of cause can produce an enormous change on the level of effect, because you change the pattern, not the detail. And that is precisely what most people do not do. They fix details and leave the same code. The most controversial part of this law says, as within, so without. And here it's easy to fall into two traps. The first, telling yourself that everything is your fault. The second, denying that you have any influence at all. Hermeticism proposes a third way, responsibility without self-flagellation. The outer world is a mirror, but the mirror is not meant to insult you. It's intended to inform you. If you feel that people don't listen to you, perhaps on the level of within, you don't listen to yourself. If you are constantly overloaded, maybe you live internally with the belief that rest must be earned. If you keep entering relationships in which you must earn love, perhaps you carry within you the pattern. Love is a reward, not a natural state. These are examples of correspondence. Not to judge you, but so that you can do something about it. Because if below shows you the result, then above shows you the direction of work. And sometimes that work is not forcing a change in the world, but changing the place in yourself from which you enter the world. The law of correspondence then becomes like a flashlight, illuminating invisible mechanisms. And when you see them, they stop ruling you quietly. You begin to choose. And here magic happens. Not the movie kind, but the real kind. Consciousness stops being a victim of unconsciousness. If you want to apply the law of correspondence, you need a method. Here is a simple, hermetic way of working in 3 steps. Step 1. Name the pattern below. What repeats? What kind of conflict? What emotion? What scenario? Not, it happened to me once, but this comes back. Step 2. Find the counterpart above. What belief, what decision, what fear, or what need is behind that pattern? What would you have to believe about yourself or the world for that scenario to be logical? Step 3. Introduce a new pattern, not only a new behavior, because you can behave differently once or twice, but if you don't change the pattern, you will return to the old role. A new pattern might sound like, my worth does not depend on approval. I can rest without guilt. Boundaries are an act of love, not aggression. And now the key? It's not about affirmations, but about a consistent experience of that pattern in small situations. Hermeticists would say, you work at the level of cause, so the effects will begin to arrange themselves differently. You will notice that people react differently, that you respond differently, and that you step into different decisions. And this is the moment when the law of correspondence stops being a quote and becomes a tool. When you understand analogies, you see that in your life, there are no random lessons. There are repeatable patterns, and patterns can be transformed. Now let's go one level deeper. Hermeticism does not stop at psychology. It says, if correspondence exists between levels, you can work with above through symbols, images, intention, and contemplation. Why? Because a symbol is the language of the mind. If the universe is mental, the first law, then symbols are like commands, not magical spells, but carriers of meaning that organize your perception and action. Take a simple example. Someone carries within them the archetype of the warrior, so they perceive everything as a fight. Another holds the archetype of the caretaker, so they perceive everything as an obligation to rescue. And someone else carries the archetype of the student and treats every failure as information. These are the aboves, inner configurations. The law of correspondence teaches that if you change the configuration at the level of the archetype, your everyday life will change. How to do it practically? Through a short, regular practice, choose one area of life that repeats. Find the symbol of that pattern. For example, cage, desert, mask. Then choose the symbol of the new pattern. For example, bridge, spring, compass. And for a few minutes a day, contemplate what it means to act from the level of the compass instead of the mask. This is not about fantasy, and it's about changing the mental structure that influences decisions. Hermeticists would say, you set the above so the below begins to adjust. The law of correspondence can be powerful, but it is also often misunderstood. The most common trap is extreme thinking. If the world is a mirror, then if someone hurt me, I created it. No. Hermeticism speaks about patterns of consciousness and the relationship between levels, but it does not tell you to justify evil or ignore boundaries. A mirror does not mean you should allow everything. A mirror means you can see where in you a reaction gets triggered, and what you can strengthen in yourself so that you stop attracting the same arrangements. The second trap is spiritual ego. I already understand the laws, so I'm above problems. And actual practice is the opposite. The more you understand, the more humbly you observe your patterns. Because consciousness is not about having no emotions, it is about emotions not leading you by the nose. If you are to take one thing from this film, let it be this. Your life is a map of your consciousness. Not to judge you, but to guide you. And when you start reading the map, you will stop wandering blindly. In the next episode, we will move on to the third law, the law of vibration, which will show how and why changing frequency is not a slogan, but the mechanics of experience. If what you heard today resonates, pause for a moment after the film and ask, what pattern in my life repeats the most? And what pattern do I want to introduce instead of it?